It's Security Weekly News, episode 142, on Friday the 13th. Yeah. This is the wrap-up for the week of 8 August, July 2021. Not that I'm superstitious or anything, so, who knows what'll go wrong. PrintNightmare, Chaos, VR Nightmares, Aggah, Infra, Halt, Zoom, and Dallas County Revisited. Sounds like a country novel or something, or maybe a country album. All that and the show wrap-ups on this edition of Security Weekly News Wrap-Up Show.
This is Security Weekly. For security professionals, by security professionals.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for Security Weekly News. The complexity of cloud infrastructure means every organization's security challenges are unique. Whether your challenge is threat hunting, policy management, cloud workload protection, or all of the above, Uptycs helps you quickly identify and eliminate observability gaps in your security programs. Uptycs, analytics for the modern attack surface, observability for the modern defender. That's Uptycs, UPTYCS. Check them out at securityweekly.com/Uptycs for a free trial. With the skills gap increasing, it's more important than ever to train your staff effectively and efficiently. Offensive Security provides training for your organization designed by the same minds behind Kali Linux. Here are two recent offerings from OffSec. OffSec Academy gives you the chance to earn industry-leading OSCP certification with dedicated one-on-one mentoring. You can also try Proving Grounds Enterprise, created exclusively by Offensive Security's InfoSec experts for highly realistic simulated networks. Visit securityweekly.com/offsec to learn more.
Hello, I'm Doug White from Roger Williams University. Get well soon, Johnny. But everything's going okay. The show must go on. Welcome to Security Weekly News Wrap-Up Show. We will wrap all show topics for this week. On Application Security Weekly number 161, John and Mike had Tom Hudson, the security research team at Detectify, on, and they were talking about APIs, which has been sort of my thing this week, and other things about that. And they were primarily talking about how AppSec tools really need to become better in order to test modern apps that are scaling using APIs. And I'm going to talk about that in my rant this week. But I really got on this topic. Seemed like a common theme this week even. The focus of this segment, though, was on Detectify and how Detectify's product deals with the challenge. I mean, your app may have apps and APIs that have APIs and they refer to lambdas developed by a guy named Bert who lives in Canada. So you worried yet? But you know how Canadians are. On Business Security Weekly number 227, Jason, Adrian, and Matt welcome Jim Ruth, the former CISO, board member, and advisor at Viresec. Jim was on and has been, Jim has been the CISO everywhere. He's been the CISO at Aetna, CVS, MassMutual, and more. Was on talking about the 3 mistakes that all first-time CISOs make. So, yeah, I mean, my mistake was just assuming how much pain network admins could actually take. Bunch of wimps. In the second segment, on the news, a CEO's guide to cybersecurity, Zoom settlement, an $85 million business case for security investment, CISOs, do you know what's in your company's products? And, of course, many, many more items. On Enterprise Security Weekly 238, Adrian, Paul, and Tyler Shields first did the news. They did that in the first segment this time. In the second segment, Paul and Adrian brought on Carolyn Solskar, the community manager for Detectify Crowdsource, who was talking about how Detectify originally started and that their goal was essentially to make hacker knowledge automated and scalable, but how modern hackers don't really work that way anymore and what tomorrow is going to look like in that realm. And Tony Punturiero, the community manager at Offensive Security, was on to talk about the role of community in learning InfoSec and in particular pen testing. Tony offered some practical tips for learning pen testing with help from the community. I definitely may want to use this segment for referrals or your own use. I get asked this question a lot. I see this question posted on Quora and other places all the time. How do I get into pen testing? How do I get involved? How do I get into this community? And I thought this was a pretty good segment for that. On Security and Compliance Weekly number 82, Jeff and Josh had on Matthew Erickson, the Vice President of Solutions at Spider Oak Mission Systems. Matthew was on to talk about looming threats to federal and private sector communication and collaboration systems, what the outcomes will be if those systems get compromised, and how zero trust and distributed ledger can harden the defenses. I mean, a very, very topical segment as we start looking into nation-state attacks and how, all these different groups from, 12-year-old kids in Kowloon up through, nation states are attacking these kind of systems. And of course, we've seen, I know last week on the news we were talking about how unprepared some of these, government agencies are with their systems. And of course, the second segment was more of that. On Security Weekly News number 141, Jason Wood talked about how a sea change from the old days regarding credit cards and the dark web has occurred. In particular, he was talking about how it was kind of ironic how 1 million stolen credit cards were given away as a marketing and PR stunt on the dark web, which is now so mainstream that the dark web has its own marketing and PR stunts, which, yeah, that's so strange to me. On Paul's Security Weekly number 706 last night, up first was Joe Gray, the senior investigator at SpyCloud and Ascension. Joe was going to talk about his soon-to-be-released book, Practical Social Engineering. Joe also did win the Trace Labs OSINT search party competition last weekend at DEF CON for the second time. So an interesting person. In the second segment, Kyle Avery, a pen tester at Black Hills Information Security, was on to talk about Mythic. And if you don't know what Mythic is, it's an open source multi-platform framework for red team engagement. So it's a way to put your red team engagement together that is open source. Kyle talked about automated deployment of a Mythic server, how to build wrappers that extend that framework, and modification of public payload types to evade signature detection. So it was really an informative piece there if you want to check that out. And in the third segment, the news. My threat for the week. Ward, I think we really need to talk about Wally and the API. I know what you thought I was going to say, but I didn't say that. I'm calling this the Meta app. And I think about this a little bit, and you probably have already thought about it a lot, and you need to think about it more anyway, and I need to think about it more anyway. So, imagine this scenario. A new game called Pimpin' Ain't Easy is developed by a guy named Ferdinand Matusak in Ogallala, Nebraska. Ferd spent years coding, uses GitHub, Lambdas, and a collection of legit and sometimes not so legit APIs. So if Ferd used the Gangbanger Gaming API from Wazup Software out of Boise illegally, but the game is awesome, but that's the engine or part of the engine. This thing is awesome, like Fortnite awesome. Ferd puts a game out and sells copies at flea markets, and it catches on, and it's bigger than Fortnite. The next thing you know, Tencent buys the game from Ferd for some large number of undisclosed Bitcoin and realizes that they made a mistake since there's so much unlicensed stuff in there. Then a guy named Tianshan shoots Ferd 13 times at a rest stop in Big Springs, Nebraska a week later. Oh, okay, so Tencent's out a lot of Bitcoin plus what they paid Tien, and what's a mother to do? Well, they license the API. So they go back and they license that API. Now, that API, the Gangbanger API, and I'm making all this up, understand? I don't want to use anything real, except Tencent, which is real, but, hey, you know who you are. Come at me, bros. Now this piece of code is cloud-based. It uses all sorts of API extensions to the point that they aren't even sure what is being used anymore. When they sit down and they try to do their bill of goods, they have no idea what is really used and how it's used and where it's connected and what it's connected to. And it's in the cloud, so it's connected across the cloud, through the cloud, out of the cloud, and ultimately to some server that's sitting on some kid's desktop in Kowloon. Turns out that, Gangbanger API is using the Greasy Lizard engine, which was written by 2 high school kids in Taiwan, and it uses 4 different APIs. I think you get the point. I got a little carried away writing that, when I was thinking about it this morning, but I love to amuse myself with such things. But, we're really getting to the point where on the giant freeway of time, in a world in which anyone could really even begin to understand the depths of some of these things. I think that software, the SBOM, the software bill of materials, is really a good idea, but I don't even know anymore if anybody can put that together. I mean, if I was writing a game right now, I would be looking for a sprite engine and so forth, because back when I used to write games and I used to teach gaming, we had to write all that stuff. But now it's like I can just jump on GitHub or somewhere else and I can start looking for a sprite engine. I can start looking for whatever other tools that I need for my game. And I'm probably going to find a bunch of them on GitHub, and I'd probably use them. I mean, I would look at the licenses because I'm paranoid. And who's to say, I mean, I'm going to do that. But I mean, who knows that Stratum 3 API that's referenced from the Sprite engine is legal, licensed, appropriate, safe, secure, and all those other good things. I mean, what does legal even mean? If some 13-year-old genius in Jakarta wrote the API and did some illegal stuff by using another API from France that they acquired or were accessing on the cloud illegally, I mean, it's going to get complicated. And I mean, so then add machine learning to it. So if you put machine learning to this, and I have a lot of faith in the predictions of sci-fi authors like Neil Stephenson and William Gibson, and of course Arthur C. Clarke, the one and only who predicted almost everything. I mean, those people think and thought about the future, and they have amazing visionary skills. So we're already seeing news about that Neil Stephenson wrote about, William Gibson wrote about bots being able to write better trolls and phishing letters than humans can. That they're much more effective, and I really think it's not going to be much longer before there are ML or AI, even it could be an AI engine that paste together basic code frames for you out of APIs that the AI or the ML finds using whatever techniques that it's using. I mean, if you decide you want to write that, so you put meta tags on an API, and then an AI could just use a decision tree to scan a huge, the whole world essentially, for a collection for a specific tool that you need in order to do something in the game, and you just click a button that says, yeah, include this, you're using the gamer engine part, version 4.7 that, basically says racing cars, and boom, the AI meta framework builds a cloud-based Docker that contains everything you need on the back end to put a racing car in your game and use it however you want. And all you do is build out the logic, and maybe you don't even do that. So you're supposed to review the licensing. Good luck. But I mean, where do you even file the lawsuits? I mean, do you think crossing state lines is complicated? Wait until a company in Brazil is trying to sue a company in Belarus who is claiming the illegal part is really because of a 12-year-old kid in Kowloon who uses the online name Big Daddy 69, and we aren't really sure who that is, but we think it's a 12-year-old kid in Kowloon, and the lawyers will all be dancing naked in the rain at some sort of eyes wide shut party in Brooklyn because the legal fees are going to be bigger than a 140-kilo gorilla on meth. I mean, yeah, it's a metaphor day, or is it a metaphor? Yeah, sort of. Anyway, this is good news for security professionals in a way, because we'll all be dancing in the rain at a different party. The lawyers won't invite us, but we'll be dancing in a better party in Brooklyn as somewhere else, because the security fees are also going to be bigger than Paul Asadorian standing on a 140-kilo gorilla drinking IPAs in the rain and meth, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. But, you get the idea. So I think we have to start getting a handle on API chaining and how that's going to work from a security and a legal perspective, all of which affects us as security professionals. I mean, this stuff's amazing. And the capability and allowing people to do amazing things is just awesome. But it's also kind of terrifying. I mean, if some ML is writing code and building code frameworks, and we basically just get reduced down to imagining a cool game where a giant ape throws flaming barrels of meth at you while you try to climb a ladder, and the ML does all the rest, I just sort of visualize it, and then boom, there's like code being written in the background. That's cool. Think of all the cool games people could come up with if they didn't actually have to sit down and code them. And humans can just be creative right up until that Skynet moment when the ML realizes it doesn't really need us. But it also means it becomes a problem in code analysis that may just, I don't know, may be insurmountable. I mean, humans may not be able to, so what to build in, we'll use ML, right? So we put the old ML out there to save us, and it'll all be okay. ML giveth, ML taketh away. So maybe an ML engine made up of 4,181 API pieces and 3 lambdas will be able to analyze the 6,765 APIs and 13 lambdas that make up the game Pimpin' Ain't Easy, and provide, a nice little pen testing report. And you just hit the print button and send it, and maybe the ML, or maybe the ML will send out a Boston Robotics dog with a flamethrower to sterilize everything related to the game. flying on a drone that's made by Factory 21, and yes, those are all Fibonacci numbers. I think I just wrote a Netflix series. Netflix, call me. We'll call it Fibonacci. Yeah, why not? I mean, that's a cool name for a series, right? Anyway, it's a brave new world. I, for one, welcome our new API-driven ML overlords and hope they will allow me to do the news as the pink lady on ML Security News Network. Happy to read this all in hacks even, but it may be a little slow until I, get used to it. And now the news. On the heels of the patch for PrintNightmare bug, which was released on Patch Tuesday. Well, guess what? Another warning about Print Spooler with another remote code execution problem emerged. Ouch. This one's only 7.3 on the CVE Richter scale, which, notice how we become numb to this stuff. And, used to, there was a time when you saw a 7.3 of CVE and you're like, ooh, that's not good. Today, it's a 7.3. Don't even worry about it. But this one can allow remote code execution because of signature requirements. And a bug in that signature requirement feature in the point and print tool. That feature allows users who don't have any privileges to install printer drivers with system privilege because they kind of how they have to be installed. And so basically when you see a printer on your network and you click on that printer and it immediately starts installing drivers, this is the service that it's using. Convenient? Yeah, they don't call the help desk going, hey, I can't use the printer, dude. The shared printer can actually specify which files are copied. So this is the really risky part. So that shared printer can actually pick files to be copied onto the user's device with system privilege. And so, the threat actor could put whatever they want in there. Victor Mata with Fusion X Group at Accenture reported this issue back in December to Microsoft and provided proof of that. So the experiment, I guess, will continue until Print Spooler is dead. And that's a reference to a very obscure book. But it's a tough old bird. Print Spooler doesn't go away anytime soon, and who knows what other nightmares of elder gods lies at the bottom of that dark pond that is PrintNightmare. No patch for this yet, but they expect one pretty soon, I think. But what you should do is you should find out if it's running in services, Print Spooler, and it probably is. Stop it and disable it, and then burn it with fire. And it will probably just reinstall itself shortly thereafter as some other tool uses that service. So may Cthulhu have mercy on your souls, and good luck with that. The Pakistani link group Aggah has been in operation since at least March of 2019, and they are now delivering a new rat in a new campaign, which apparently started in July, according to Anomaly. Aggah typically focuses on data theft and has launched a new campaign against WordPress sites. This campaign uses their typical tactic, which is spear-phishing, which is nothing new under the sun. But it's a custom email which lists foodhub.co.uk as a source. And FoodHub is a legitimate company in England. The body of the email has an attached PowerPoint file named purchase order 4500061977 that has obfuscated macros that use mshta.exe to execute a JavaScript from a different compromised website called mail.hoteloscar.in, which is also a legitimate site, but it's been compromised. That in turn then uses PowerShell to down. This got my attention because it's so elaborate. It uses PowerShell to download encoded shell code, which assembles itself into Warzone rat. So, and Warzone is another rat that's been around a while, but you can buy that one on the dark web commercially. They probably even have marketing and PR events, to promote it. Warzone uses Ave Maria Stealer. Does this sound like an API chain to you? Yeah, it's starting to sound that way to me. Warzone uses Ave Maria Stealer, which allows it to conduct escalation, key logging, remote shell, all the usual suspects, and executing frameworks and so forth. It's really complicated, but I know they do that because that way they get around all the security. It can bypass user account control, which is called UAC in Microsoft, using PowerShell, which can be set to exclude the user account control. And then it runs sdcit.exe. I know you're getting all this down, right? SDCIT, a Windows backup utility that can run with escalated privileges. Wow. But all that's covered in articles. So if you're interested in such things, and most of us are, check that one out because it is just nuts. Active scanning is going on for unpatched Exchange servers, and we reported this before. ProxyShell, an earlier problem this year, is still out there. It has been patched. And I know patching Exchange server is never a fun task, and a lot of people, I would suspect, have delayed these patches due to, everyone screaming about their email and business costs and so forth the minute you try to take an Exchange server offline. But you need to patch this, okay? This report stemmed out of Orange Sai's Black Hat talk about Exchange vulnerabilities. And after the talk, Peter Jason and Zhang published a new article with technical information about how to do this ProxyShell exploit. That immediately set off a round of scanning for vulnerable Exchange servers. And Kevin Beaumont tweeted that his honeypot was being hit with scans for the ProxyShell vulnerability just minutes. This all happened like very, very quickly after this Black Hat talk. The attackers were using the auto-discover URL that Sai had on a slide at Black Hat. So that's how quickly people were digesting this information, building it into an exploit, and getting it out there running so that they could try to take advantage of it before people fix it. The article has all the grim details of this attack and the honeypot and everything else. But look, patch your Exchange servers and then read the article, okay? So patch Exchange servers, then read the article. Like, patch them right now. But keep watching or listening. A piece of malware called Chaos was detected being advertised as available for testing on the dark web. So more marketing and PR from the dark web. I'm like, really? So, pretty soon they'll have like Sterling Cooper will be working for the dark web. They probably already are, actually. But this is a ransomware in quotes, with wiping capabilities. A long time ago, I did this forensics job that involved a very simple tool like this that was called Forever Hack. And it basically infected web servers, mostly in China, which is where I was working on this, out in the People's Republic of China, at a truck factory, which got hit with Forever Hack. And it just basically, replaced all the file contents with the Forever Hack page. So it was pretty easy to recover if you had backups. But the people I was working for wanted to find out who did it. That was the simple good old days. Chaos, apparently, in their marketing materials, and imagine marketing materials not being correct. It's hard to believe. But they apparently claim to be a .NET version of Ryuk. And had all sorts of branding related to Ryuk. But Monty de Jesus at Trend Micro took it apart and said that it didn't really behave like Ryuk at all, and it's really much more like a destructive Trojan, like Forever Hack. And it doesn't do encryption at the time, and the initial version of it didn't do encryption, but it rather just replaced the files with and their contents with random bytes. So it just went through the file, wrote random bytes in there, and then it encoded the files in base 64. So it's not really a ransomware because you can't unencrypt that, right? And there's no reason to pay the ransom once you realize, I guess if you realize that. So it was a lot like Forever Hack, which was just this sort of, pestilential Trojan. It does, however, provide a ransom note asking you to pay 0.147 Bitcoins. I'm not sure what they give you with that. Probably a letter saying, "Ha, sucker! Send us another 0.147 Bitcoins, and we'll send you the solution." And they just keep doing that until you, realize you're being taken. The latest version, though, of Chaos ransomware uses AES RSA to encrypt files, and it can encrypt up to a 2 megabyte size file. So it's an interesting process to observe as this develops. I don't know if they're going to have beta versions out there and a patch Tuesday and all this kind of stuff, and probably even a help desk you could call because it's not working right. They probably already have that. Infra Halt is a security problem that targets niche stack versions below 4.3. If you don't know what niche stack is, and you may not, it's a TCP/IP stack that is widely used in industrial control systems and represents 14 vulnerabilities that were discovered by Forescout Research Labs and JFrog Security Research. The 14 different vulnerabilities can ramp up to include remote code execution, denial of service, and more. The vulnerabilities target the DNS client and HTTP server components of the TCP/IP stack, and that's going to allow the attacker ultimately to achieve full control of a targeted system. The attack only required 4 steps in a demo that was on there that was provided by Stanislav Dashevsky in order to actually compromise a piece of ICS equipment. And Stanislav put the proof of concept of an attack, and he was using an industrial control system, PLC, that managed an industrial fan. Emerson, Honeywell, Mitsubishi Electric, Rockwell, Schneider Electric, and Siemens are all among the list of users of Niche Stack. So if you have those kind of devices, you may want to be sure and isolate them and or check. A Shodan scan in March revealed more than 6,400 vulnerable devices on the internet currently that were using the Niche Stack prior to 4.3. Patches are available, but they're only by request, and it's not exactly easy to patch a lot of these devices. This can be a fairly arduous process, and you may have to physically go out there with a laptop and push the patches over some kind of cable. Isolate and control and contain your OT. I mean, like now, really. I mean, you should be doing that anyway, but, obviously people aren't. Zoom has agreed to pay $85 million at a settlement about claims that they lied about their end-to-end encryption and instead gave user data to Facebook and Google. Imagine that, a company lying. It's hard to believe. I bet their marketing materials said they didn't lie. Call Sterling Cooper. The settlement is in response to a class action lawsuit related to security problems that resulted in a bunch of Zoom bombings early on. And, people got all upset because people put porn and stuff in those classrooms. Basically, they agreed to give users in the class action lawsuit $15 or $25 apiece. I'll tell you why. In 9 months after the lawsuit filed in the Northern District of California, the settlement has not yet been agreed to by the court, so they have to take that civil settlement to the court and get the judge to agree that it's okay. But if you have a paid subscription to Zoom or had a paid subscription to Zoom, you can get $25, and if not, you can get only $15 if you were using Zoom. The lawyers, of course, get 25% of the settlement plus expenses at least, and I think they get more than that. Well, I don't know. I think it said 25%. At least I will get $25 out of it if they approve it. Zoom is also, as part of this lawsuit, Zoom is required to develop and maintain for 3 years documented protocols and procedures for third-party application information and dissemination to the users of this information. They have to develop and maintain a user support ticket system for internal tracking about meeting disruptions, develop and maintain a process for communication with law enforcement about meeting disruption, and development of security features for waiting rooms. Yeah, I'm sure all that will happen. Zoom, however, did not admit to any wrongdoing in this suit, and they use, blah, 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 usual stuff. No information about how to file a claim was in the article, but I'm sure that the law firm will reach out via a page 15 ad in the New York Times or something to tell you how to apply for your $25 if the settlement gets approved. I hate those things. You get 19 cents and, it's just crazy. Anyway, 2 people who were accused of breaking into the Dallas County Courthouse filed a lawsuit because they were arrested 2 years ago by the sheriff of Dallas County, even though they were hired by the county to conduct the pen test. This was a pretty big case. We talked about it a lot on a lot of different shows back then. And the 2 people worked for Coalfire, and they were hired to conduct the security test by the state court administration. The sheriff's office was not informed of the pen test and got upset, and then they went out there and arrested them and probably roughed them up a little bit on the 3rd floor of the courthouse, and they had burglary tools in 2019. The charges were later dropped, but the civil lawsuit claims negligence, false arrest, abuse of process, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and malicious prosecution since the pen testers actually had their scope documents with them. But they got dragged off to jail anyway by the sheriff's office. It was all some kind of political pissing match in the town, apparently. Did you know that possession of burglary tools is illegal in most places? And that includes lockpicks, wrecking bars, Slim Jims, and pretty much anything they want to call a burglary tool. So if you get in trouble, they go, oh, that's a burglary tool. That's a cigarette lighter? Oh, you could use that. So be careful out there. I also, when I was researching some of that, found out that drug paraphernalia can also be found in your possession, and that you immediately, when you think of drug paraphernalia, you think bongs and, needles and, what are those tourniquets that you wrap around your arm to shoot heroin, all that kind of stuff that I know about from movies. But apparently it also includes things like alligator clips and Dr. Grabo pipes, which are the ones you buy at drugstores, like those old pipes like, hey, Ward, how you doing? Welcome to the country club. Even pipe cleaners were listed on there as being potential drug paraphernalia, and they could all show that they just have to show that you might have been using marijuana, and then they can charge you with that. And in Arkansas, that includes a 1-year prison term for each one of those items. Yep, just saying. I mean, And finally, when you're wearing that VR headset, no one can see your eyes. Why is that even a problem? I mean, but apparently somebody decided it was terrible that you couldn't see a problem. So fret no more. Facebook wants to put the social back in VR social networking and presented a prototype Monday that it projects your eyes onto the outside of the VR headset. Super crazy creepy. So your disembodied eyes can be seen by people watching you use your VR headset. I was like, what? Super creepy. And I don't really get it. I mean, if I put on my VR goggles, why would I be, even if I was in a public place, why would I care if you could see my eyes? And if I was at home using VR, wouldn't everybody else that was in the room be using VR? Or is everybody just watching me do VR and like standing up in front of a room doing VR so I got my face on it? I don't know. The things they do these days. What's next? Some sort of global network where everybody can get together and exchange porn and malware? Who knows? Now get off my virtual lawn. And that's a news wrap-up for the week of 8 August 2021 in the declining and now increasing time of plague. Go get your vaccine, please, and patch your servers. Really, please.